Peace and blessings, everyone. It's me, Coach Ed, coming today to bring in you a new review show on college football. This is called Between the Hashmarks, the review show, brought to you by ABSN. This is strictly for ABSN, so you're going to be getting the review of all the games, or some of the games, the major key games, important games, as much as we can, uh, all tied up into this show here. Time to time, we'll have guests on to talk about certain games, but this is what it's all about: college review show. Now, this past week, we had some games. College football is finally back. Yes. Now, they consider this week zero. You had about 10 games that were on this weekend on Saturday. So, and covered two of the games. So, we're going to be talking about those two games as well as a couple other in this show. So, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys tap into the ABSN. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the network, and hit the notification so you know when new content is provided. And make sure you guys share on all your social media platforms. Also, check out all the content creators there on the ABSN. Tap into all of their programs. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Again, bringing you all the great content, not just college football, but all sports. Well-rounded, well-diverse network bringing it to you. So, but let's get into the games that happened this weekend. Now, first game to kick off the season was in Dublin, Ireland, and you had two Big 12 teams going at it. You had Iowa State taking on Kansas State. Now, Kansas State was the favorite. In the end, you ended up having Iowa State come away victorious 24 to 21 over Kansas State. Now, Kansas State, for the most part, played a fairly, I would say, dominating game in a sense until the second half when Iowa State, which is something I was imploring during the stream, started going to the run game. First half, it was non-existent. Roughly, I think they had around 21 yards in the first half, but as a whole, in the second half, they ended up with over 100 yards rushing, 130 yards rushing, led by Hansen, who had 16 carries for 71 yards. And he started to become very effective in that run game. So, they were trying to pass a lot. Beck, their starting quarterback, was 14 of 28 for 183 yards, two touchdowns. But again, in the first half, he wasn't as efficient, and Kansas State was doing the effective thing. They were putting the pressure on them, bringing the blitz. Overall, Beck was sacked 4 times for minus 32 yards. So, but once they started going to the ground game, it changed the whole tenor of the game for Kansas State. Now, Kansas State, conversely, their quarterback, Avery Johnson, was 21 of 30 for 273 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 1 time, but he was very efficient as a quarterback. They did get 110 yards on the ground, led by Jackson, 12 carries for 51 yards. So, as you see, as I was explaining, go back and tap in, check out the game if you want to go back and get the play-by-play, because I gave it to you there. Iowa State turned it on in the second half, and they went to the ground game, and that's where they were more efficient and effective. Now, there's a lot of things they need to clean up to be a true contender in the Big 12, but they're in very good position. Now, Kansas State is not out of it by any means. It's the first game, so there are things they can do. And, of course, they want to get in position to, if Iowa State is there, exact their revenge against Iowa State in the championship game. So we'll see what happens as the season goes along. So there you have first game, Iowa State over Kansas State, 24 to 21. So pretty exciting game there. Now, the next game we want to talk about, you had a team in the Mountain West taking on an FCS team from the Big Sky. You had UNLV in the Mountain West taking on Idaho State from the Big Sky. Now, Idaho State last year was 5-7, and UNLV played in the Mountain West Championship game. Now, they're considered one of the top teams in the country in terms of the Mountain West. So, this was a game that was a little bit surprising because I'll be honest with you. Initially, I thought, okay, UNLV, they're going to handle their business and I don't want to say blow out Idaho State, but I did not think it was going to be a close contest. In the end, UNLV did come away victorious. They won 38-31. Now, this is a big concern, especially defensively. Gus Malzahn is going to definitely have to step it up there. Idaho State passed for 395 yards and rushed for 160 yards. So that's over 555 yards of total offense there. So if they want to be a contender in the Mountain West, they're going to definitely need to step it up defensively because you cannot let an FCS team come in and get over almost 600 yards in a sense. Now, offensively, they did pass for 232 yards and they did rush for 300 yards. So they did well offensively themselves, getting over 500 yards of total offense. But the key here is their defense. They need to step it up because when you're playing in the Mountain West and you have teams like San Diego State, you have Boise, you have Air Force, you have some tough teams in your conference. Colorado State is another one. You're going to need to step it up because if you don't, you're not going to be contending for the conference championship and hopefully depending a college playoff spot. So definitely UNLV has a lot to clean up going forward. And with their next game, hopefully they will be able to do that. So, and I kind of do expect that, usually in college sports, because there is no real preseason, usually from week 1 to week 2 is where you start to see a change in terms of teams and the makeup of their season. So there you have it. Now, another game, you had a team from the ACC traveling all the way to take on another Mountain West team, and it was Hawaii hosting Stanford. Yes, Stanford in California is part of the ACC, for those of you who don't know. But in the end, you had Hawaii come away victorious 23-20 over Stanford in that game. So it was a good game. Hawaii's quarterback definitely did perform well. Alejado, he was a little injured towards the end of the game, but he was very effective. 27-39, 210 yards, two touchdowns on the day. So, not a lot of passing yards, but the efficiency was there in terms of getting the ball out quickly and getting it to the right players. Now, they do run a variation of the old run and shoot, which also plays into that. So, definitely looking forward to see how Hawaii does going forward. They gained 96 yards on the ground, so they're more of a passing team overall. In terms of Stanford, they went 15-30, so 50% passing for 109 yards, no touchdowns and interception by the quarterback Gulbranson. Now, they did run for 177 yards on 43 carries, so they were more efficient in the ground game. But, playing in the ACC, they're definitely going to need to step it up. And this right now does not bode well for them going forward. Interim head coach Frank Wright definitely needs to bring the players together and help elevate this program, because playing in the ACC, especially with the traveling that you're going to end up having to do, it's not looking well. And there's concerns that they might only get 2 or 3 wins on the season. I've read a couple of publications that spoke to that. So we'll see what happens going forward. So, but again, congratulations to Hawaii coming away victorious, especially against a Power 4 program. So we'll see what it does going forward in the regular season. Next game we want to talk about was, in a sense, uh, it was a, how can I say this nicely? It was a spanking. That's all I can say. You actually ended up having Kansas taking on Fresno State and end up coming away with a 31-7 victory. And when I did tap in and watch some of the highlights, it didn't even look like it was that close. Um, Kansas quarterback Daniels, 18-20, very efficient, 176 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kansas also rushed for 207 yards, led by Henshaw Jr., 13 carries, 69 yards. So, very effective, very efficient offensively, controlled the game for the most part. Um, EJ Warner for Fresno, 18-29, 179 yards, 2 interceptions. Uh, Pretty much was not good, and their ground game was non-existent, 37 yards. But when you're behind, you're going to end up having to, try and pass much more than you need to. So it's going to be a long season. For Fresno, they're playing also in the Mountain West. Like I said earlier, there are some tough teams there. They're going to need to step it up. And usually the Bulldogs find a way to turn it around. So we'll see what happens as the season goes along. For Kansas, out of the Big 12, this is a good start for them. So if they can continue this momentum, before they get into conference play, it might bode well for them. So, kudos to them in terms of coming away with a 31-7 victory. Now, what I consider was in a sense, a shootout. You had Western Kentucky hosting Sam Houston State. And this game was close for a little bit, but in the end, Western Kentucky came away victorious, 41-24. I mean, Sam Houston, their quarterback, 19-30, 209 yards and an interception. They did rush for 173 yards. Watson led the way in 14 carries, 91 yards, and 1 touchdown. So, they have something that they're working with there. Part of that is with their new head coach, Phil Longo, offensive mind. So he's going to look to continue to improve their offensive production. You're getting almost 400 yards of total offense. So, it could be a long season, but they're one of those teams that, we're going to see towards the end of the season how they develop and how they grow. So, and for Western Kentucky, McIver, starting quarterback, 33 completions on 51 attempts, 401 yards and 3 touchdowns. They also ran for 105 yards. So, they got over 500 yards of total offense. So, pretty much they did what they needed to do, especially coming away victorious here. This bodes well for them because they're going to be very tough in their conference there. So, definitely looking forward to seeing more of what Western Kentucky does going forward. So, and finally, I did cover an HBCU, the HBCU Classic, the MEAC versus the Southwest Athletic Conference. You had North Carolina State taking on Southern University down in Atlanta. This game, for the most part, it started out close, and North Carolina State took advantage of basically long drives, 13, 14 play drives, to go move the football. Southern, they scored pretty much on explosive plays. A 69-yard touchdown, an 80-yard touchdown, those types of plays in the course of the game. But North Carolina Central showed why they're one of the tough teams, especially with their running game. It definitely stepped up. Shout out to a man, NYG22, also known as Unpopular Opinion Sports. He was calling it during the course of the game, speaking to their starting running back and, the talent that he has there, put on a show, controlled the narrative that they needed to do. Southern, it just seemed like throughout the course of the game, they were holding back their starting quarterback from really passing. Towards the end of the game, he started to step up, started to hit plays, but it was a little bit too late for Southern. So, going into the SWAC, we need to see, if they can further develop their starting quarterback. North Carolina Central, to me right now, they're the team to beat in the MEAC. So we'll see what happens going through the course of the season. So there you have it. Just wanted to touch base and give you a little recap on some of the games. This coming week, there's going to be more starting on Thursday. I'll be covering games starting with Rutgers in Ohio. So there's games on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So there's always going to be a game on, whether on my channel or right here on the ABSN and also on the Hardcore Sports Network. So stay tuned. Next week, I'll bring another episode of Between the Hashmarks and give you a recap on a lot of the games. So thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate everyone for being here. You guys be safe. And always remember, turn it on and turn it up. Peace.